Hi everybody of the vinyl community, John back again. In this video I'm going to show a small flurry of soul records that I've collected over the past few months, over the autumn period I suppose you'd say. I will start off by a caveat that says that I'm relatively new to soul. It was always something that I never really had any interest for. We've made videos to that effect before. I think it was James Griffiths that sort of encouraged me to listen a bit closer, a little bit further, and I got an inkling of an interest of some of these artists and bands. And then I think about a couple of months ago, I sort of had quite a big sort of realisation, or sort of the penny dropped, much in the same way as it did for me with jazz, and sort of a different way of listening to music rather than sort of using my rock or prog ears to listen to something. So change those ears to a different set of ears, a bit like Wurzel Gummage's head.
So that's what you was for, is it?
I can put on different ears these days. I'm not really sure what it was, but something clicked, and I sort of felt that I could go back and listen to many of the records that I have in my collection that are soul related or soul based, and all of a sudden I understood all of a sudden. So I've picked up a few here, and I'm going to show and talk a little bit about them. In one of my most recent soul videos, I showed, it was the Soul Jackpot. I picked up a J.R. Junior Walker in the All Stars album. Well, lo and behold, I found another one. This is Shotgun. Now I understand it's a Tamla Motown record, as well as being on Music for Pleasure. I don't really quite know how that works out, but well, here's the proof it exists. Now this, I believe, it looks a bit like a compilation, but I think it is actually a studio album, but with a different cover on it. Now this is really quite good. Junior Walker obviously is a saxophone player, and he is sort of part of that very nice sort of Motown sound. Can't really say much more than that, but it is a very nice record. Very happy to have this. Now this one and the next record I'm going to show came from a particular charity shop. So this is Otis Redding. There's an album called Otis. Now I understand this is actually a compilation. These two came from a charity shop, and they were sort of really sort of overpriced. Sometimes in these charity shops you'll get the sort of the do-gooding people that think, oh, we can make a lot of money on these records because people pay a fortune for them. And yes, they do, as you'll be aware if you're a record collector. But they were putting the same price on these ones as they were putting on James' last records, or Barry Manilow, and sort of pricing them up sort of £10 plus. This one's actually priced up at £15. Now, I don't know if anyone would ever go into a charity shop and spend £15 on an album. And I did think very strongly about sort of querying this with these people. It worked out. I didn't really need to, because I saw these records and looked at them, and then I didn't buy them for that price, obviously, and I came home, looked up a little bit about them on the internet, read about them, and listened a little bit online, and I thought, I really would like those, but I'm not going to pay that price. That's just, you know, extortionate in a charity shop. And the next time I went back, they were still there, but there were different staff in there. It was sort of not a young person, but sort of I guess quite an elderly lady, I suppose. And I asked her about the records, expecting her to say something like, "Oh yeah, they're as priced," or "We've had someone come in and price them, and that's what we're taking from." But she didn't. She just sort of looked at them, squinted like this at the box, and I was saying, "Can you tell me about you know, the pricing of these records?" And she looked and sort of said, "We normally take about £1 or £2, don't we, for each record?" And there's another old lady there. So, "Oh, that sounds about right." So I seized on the opportunity, picked them up, slapped them on the counter, and bought them for a few quid. No questions asked. Is that right or wrong? I don't know. I mean, I've since been back and bought a lot more records from that charity shop. But I just find it frustrating when people that don't really know what they're doing think they do by slapping on really silly prices on records. I don't think it's good for anybody. Anyway, Otis. When I brought this home, I listened to it. I know he's often someone that gets spoken about on the internet. And I was quite excited to hear it, and yeah, it is. It's really quite good. And I think listening to this record particularly really sort of helped me understand what it is I'm listening out for in these soul records. It's on Atlantic. Oh, upside down. There you go. And yeah, I spun this quite a long time over a series of days, and I remember when that sort of penny dropped, thinking, "Oh, I really should go through my collection and pull out some of the other soul records and listen to them with this same set of ears." Glad I did, because yeah, all of a sudden, I don't know, I've got 6 or 7 Al Green albums in that collection that I'd sort of kept just really because, well, it's Al Green, you're supposed to have him. And all of a sudden, yeah, they started to make a bit more sense. Marvin Gaye, there's a couple of, I've got a few Marvin Gaye and Tammy Terrell albums that I'd never really kind of enjoyed. And all of a sudden, yeah, they took on a new significance. So, yeah, all thanks to really listening to this and plugging into it and finding out what it's all about. From that same shop, I came away with this, Gladys Knight and the Pips. I believe this is her, or their 15th studio album, and it's one of the more popular ones. This is on Buddha. Don't know much about Gladys Knight and the Pips. I've got a few of their records, and again, they're sort of ones that I don't know, found a new appreciation for. So yeah, good to have that in the collection. It's a bit more flowery, I suppose you'd say, if that's a word. A bit more flowery than some of these other soul albums I've been listening to. But nonetheless, good record. One of the runs I pulled out of my collection when I had this new realisation about soul music was this one. This is an album I've had for years. I bought this in Sweden. You can tell that because it's got this sticky thing here. Back in the day in Sweden, they used to put this plombering, they call it, which is just sort of basically a security tab. So that if you buy a record for someone and you give it to them and they don't like it, or they've got it already, they can take it back as long as the seal is intact. I guess nobody thought in those days, well, do you really want that tab there stuck for the rest of the record's life? Because you can't get them off. But anyway, yeah, I picked this up in Sweden and brought it home. Really didn't like it. It summed up everything that I disliked about soul music. And Curtis Mayfield, he's a big name. I knew who I knew of the name, I didn't really know his type of music, but I bought it. And the reason why I kept it is I quite like the cover, to be honest with you. And I've also had this thing really where I don't really like to make a snap decision about something. In fact, I'm quite slow in making decisions, so I've kind of hung on to it in the hope that, well, maybe one day I might enjoy this more. So glad that I did, because when I pulled this out after that realisation from listening to Otis Redding, all of a sudden this was just, wow, really good record. I've probably spun this record more times in the last month or two than I have in the 15 years or so that I've had it in my collection. Yeah, it's sort of one of those ones that's been lost in the depth of the collection, barely seen the light of day since I brought it home. Great record. There's this oh, this is also on Buddha. Now, I was so impressed with this, and I really liked the sort of the way it made me feel. I went online quickly to see what else I could get by Curtis Mayfield, and I've picked up a copy of this. It's just a reissue, but it was going at a reasonable price, and I understand it's I think it's his first album, isn't it? It's an album that is often heralded as being, you know, one of his better albums, and yeah, I don't regret buying this at all. Really good record. It's funny to think that not so long ago I wouldn't have even thought twice about bringing this home, but through listening to Otis Redding, kind of, yeah, changed things up a bit, changed the rules. Great album. I'm sure many of you know of that. Now, the last record I'm going to show now is one that I've picked up just in recent weeks and brought it home, just, you know, as a blind buy, and I didn't really know what to expect. This is O.C. Smith together. His name is actually O.C., not spelt with letters, but is it O-C-E-E or something like that. I don't know why he abbreviates it to O.C. Smith, but that's what he done. This is a record come out in '77, I understand, and I didn't know what to expect, but I thought, well, I'll give it a go. And I quite like the label here. It's quite neat. I don't think I've seen that before. I will say this. I've spun this a couple of times now, and it is a bit slick. Doesn't have that sort of organic quality that you find in a lot of some of the earlier 70s soul records, soul and funk. But it is, it's got really good sort of slap bass happening through this record. Beautiful sound, that is. But the songs are very slick, and I'm not really quite sure how I feel about that. I always like to say that, you know, it's sort of heading a little bit too far close to disco for my liking, but I don't know if that's true of this record. It is definitely an element of funk in here, but it is a bit too polished for my feeling at the moment. Now, Rob Walker made a video recently about records that he's kind of ejecting from his collection because he decided he didn't like them. Or records that he regretted buying, I remember, that's what it was. And a few that he pulled out and spoke about, yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. Some of the ones that he was showing, I was thinking, yeah, I really don't like that record either. But I do have a hard time making a snap decision like that. And whereas I'd hung on to this record for as long as I had, and I'm now quite grateful that I did, I might hang on to this one a bit longer. If I shove it in my shelves, forget about it, maybe I'll discover it again in, I don't know, a few years' time, and maybe it'll make more sense. I don't know much about O.C. Smith. more John Dowling territory, but I don't really rate it very highly yet, but maybe I will do in the future. Okay everybody, that's my little soul flurry. Going to try and knock out a few more videos before Christmas, and I'd like to wish you all season's greetings. Check out my next video coming soon. Bye.